Deep right field. Down the line it goes. Castellanos is out of room. It's out of runner goes. 3-2 pitch hit down the line. Is it fair? It is a fair ball. Into the corner. Off and running. Chu. Yu Chang around third. He's going to score easily. And in the second. Hit hard. Hit deep. Up and out. Goes Amed Rosario. And there's a fly ball. Left field. It's deep. It's up. It's gone to the porch. Deep left center field, it is gone to Souvenir City.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE Podcast. I'm your host, Max Goldstein, joined as always by my co-host, Mel Kirby. And tonight we're going to be recapping last week's set of games between the Guardians and the Athletics, as well as the Guardians and the Angels. And there seems to be a theme going on, Mel. It's either we're getting swept or we're doing the sweeping. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the last 7 series that the Guardians have competed in, they have either been swept or they have swept their opponents. I kind of just want to hear what your thoughts are on this little bit of an unorthodox start to the season here.
Yeah, this team can definitely be frustrating to watch at times because there's no middle ground with this team. And it's probably going to be like this for most of the season, just because there's so many young guys. And I think part of this young core is kind of realizing, like, and Austin had just talked about it before the game today on the broadcast. And he was saying, like, when you have a prolonged losing streak, like that 7-game one they just had in New York and LA, it can feel like you're going to lose 150 games in a row. And like for young kids, they're like, what's going on? Like, are we going to win again? And it can be tough to not get too high and not get too low. But then when you come out and, you know, I know Oakland, we all kind of said they should sweep or at least win the series. But sometimes taking care of business is all that you need to do to get that confidence up with these young kids. And, you know, for them to really see what they can do at this level, like their stuff plays at this level. And you know, we're going to talk about him here in a bit, but like what Andres Gimenez did in Oakland was such a long time coming. There are so many fans who get so down on this kid all the time. And he is 23 years old. He has all the hit tools. Like, he's the elite defender. He should be playing at shortstop every day. And, you know, this Oakland series was just kind of touching the surface of, you know, what he can bring to the table, and he's getting consistent at bats and he knows what position he's going to be playing. So I know he didn't have the greatest first game. He had a strikeout with the bases loaded, but again, like, that's no reason to get down on the kid. Like, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but he's going up there and he's confident. And that's what I like to see from these young guys.
Yeah. It's really exciting to see the kids go to play, you know, Steven Kwan, Richie Palacios. We got to see a bit of Gabriel Arias as well. A small update on Gabriel, just that we're touching on him right now. I believe he suffered a fractured hand, and he's going to be sidelined for the next couple of weeks here. So we're wishing him well for sure. But it is nice, you know, going into a season with not that many expectations. We're just looking to compete here, and that's all that these young kids are doing. They're getting their shot and they're making the most of it. So it's really exciting. But on that note, we do have a couple highlights. As streaky as this season has been, there are 2 guys on the roster that have been straight solid for us, Jose Ramirez and Steven Kwan. So Jose Ramirez won AL Player of the Month.
No surprise there.
Right after the contract, making it known that it was well worth it. He's batting .342 with 7 home runs, 28 RBIs with a 1.133 OPS. And then Steven Kwan won AL Rookie of the Month, batting .354, 17 hits, a .459 on base percentage with a .959 OPS. So these guys
I said preseason, I said it on this podcast, that if Steven Kwan can stay up here and get consistent at bats every day, he's going to be top 5 Rookie of the Year. And I know there's probably listeners who thought I was crazy because, you know, obviously the top guys, the Brian Rocchios, the George Valeras, the Gabriel Ariases, they get all the attention. But I'm telling you, Steven Kwan has the perfect hit tools to hit at the top of this lineup. And we see what he can do with everyday at bats, because sometimes all you need to do to get rewarded is just put the bat on the ball. And you got speed like he has, like him and Straw at the top of that lineup. is the perfect combination. And I think that we see when Kwan was out of the lineup and Miles Straw was struggling, the whole lineup struggled.
Yeah.
And obviously part of that was Fran Mill struggling behind Jose. So teams are starting to pitch around him. But I'm telling you, when those two at the top, when they're on their game and they're getting on base and they're putting pressure on the pitchers on the mound, this lineup can do great things. And I think they can continue to kind of exceed expectations if they have that formula at the top.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up Miles Straw and the way that he was struggling. And now that Stephen Kwan finds himself in the lineup on a more usual occasion, Miles Straw, 15 walks. I mean, what more can you ask from a guy this early in the season from your leadoff hitter to just get on base, take your pitches, get out, get your walks, get your stolen bases, and, find yourself crossing home plate at the end of it. But I mean, Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan, two guys that are producing at elite levels at the moment. But, you got two guys that aren't exactly producing, and we had to do something about it. There was a roster crunch recently. The roster had to get from 28 to 26 players after Sunday's game in Oakland. And as we had been talking about and, speculating over the last couple of weeks, Logan Allen and Bobby Bradley were DFA'd. What are your thoughts on that? It was only a matter of time, right?
Yeah, I think for Bobby Bradley, the writing was really on the wall in that game in Oakland on Saturday. When he didn't get the pinch hit at bat in the ninth for Austin Hedges, they turned to Richie Palacios, the kid who had just came up. And as we know, he hit the game-winning 2-run double. But that's the thing right there. Like, those are the spots that I always said Bobby Bradley could be really successful on this team, right? Those spots where he's coming up late in the game because he's got that power potential. But we weren't seeing that power potential this season. And sure, I'm sure a lot of it is attributed to the fact that he wasn't getting consistent at bats. He was on a really short leash, which we predicted coming out of spring training. That's kind of what they do with the guys who are out of options. You get a short look. Last year was like a big evaluation period for him, but he came into this game hitting 067. So if you're hardly making contact, he had like 9 strikeouts and 17 at bats. You're not really bringing much to the table. It's not like he's an elite defender at first base. He does fine. But he just didn't have a spot on this team. And then with Logan Allen, I think I said it last week on the podcast, like, he just doesn't have the stuff to be successful out of the bullpen. His stuff's not good enough. I still think he's going to be successful. Like, his only chance at success is going to be as a starter. And with the depth this organization has, he just wasn't going to catch on in the rotation here. And with Sam Hentges performing as well as he is this year, which, I mean, I was so hard on Sam Hentges all offseason. I did not think he was going to stick. And he's performed well. Like, he pitched 2 scoreless innings in game 1 of this game today. He just continues to come out and utilize his pitches well and keep hitters off balance. And I think that kind of slammed the door shut on any chance that Logan Allen had to stay here. But I hope these guys catch on somewhere else. They're both good guys from everything I can tell. And, sometimes it's just not the right situation. So I wish them nothing but the best, nothing but success. And, let's see what these kids have here now.
Yeah, totally agree. Wishing them the best. And, sometimes it just doesn't pan out. But another guy that we've been focusing on throughout spring training and this early part of the season is Yu Chang. So currently Yu Chang is in Columbus AAA. He got bumped up from Akron on a rehab assignment from the COVID list. But, we've been mentioning he doesn't really have that many options on this roster. Aside from pitchers, it seems like the roster is pretty much set. We know who we're going to be seeing day in, day out. Ernie Clement's going to sprinkle himself into the lineup here and there. Owen Miller, and then you obviously have Richie Palacios as well. But, they can't just keep Yu Chang down in Columbus. So I was kind of wondering what you were thinking we were going to be doing with him over these next couple weeks before we have to make another decision.
Yeah, so I'm kind of surprised the decision on you hasn't came yet. Like you said, he got bumped up to Columbus on this mysterious rehab assignment. And, they did report that he did have COVID symptoms. So obviously we hope he's doing okay and feeling better. But it feels a lot like roster manipulation. And they're just trying to buy themselves some time because, like you mentioned, he doesn't have any minor league options left. There's no place for him on the major league club right now. But what this tells me is they really don't want to give him up for nothing. I don't know if they're trying to work out some sort of trade. It's kind of early, but I mean, the lockout season and the COVID seasons of late, like, I don't know what the time frame really looks like. I think they could happen at any time, but I really think they're trying to get something for him. But at this point, I just hope they don't send Richie down. I've been such a big Richie fan for a long time, and he's showing he can hit. And that's the biggest thing. Like, his first game last week against the Angels, nobody in the lineup was doing anything. And he just comes up there and has the same approach both times and makes it look so easy. And obviously, like, what more can you ask? Like, that game-winning double on Saturday. Like, that was the most emotion I've ever seen him show. And, like, his teammates were so hyped up for him. And these are the things he can bring to this lineup. And, like, for him to be the 9-hitter and you swing it right on up to Miles Straw and Stephen Kwan, you can see that they're building a lineup of guys who can make contact with the ball. They're not going to outslug anybody. They're not going to be hitting 5 home runs a game, but they are going to get on base and they are going to make a pitcher's life miserable. And that's, Chris Valleca's formula for success, especially for a team that's set up the way it is. And I think Richie fits that profile perfectly, whereas Yu Chang strikes out a lot. He's got more power potential, but he strikes out a lot. And then you have Ernie Clement, who he can play all over the field, and Tito loves him. So, but he has an option left, I believe. So I wouldn't mind sending Ernie down just to get consistent at bats every day, kind of wake his bat up a little bit. And that can leave Richie up here, because I think with a team like this, you kind of want to ride the hot hand. Like, throughout the season, there's so many guys that they need to get at bats that I think you have no other choice but to ride the hot hand. And, when somebody's not hot, you got to sit them down and give the next guy up a chance. So I'd expect a decision on you to come maybe before this coming series against Toronto or at some point this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that Yu Chang, he does get his at-bats, and at times he's producing, but other times it doesn't even really seem like he's putting the ball in play. And just to touch on how important that really is, we saw that example earlier on today in the first game of the doubleheader between the Guardians and the Padres, where Richie Palacios put up a 9-pitch at-bat, and then it ended up being an RBI infield single just because he has the ability to put the ball at the bat on the ball on a consistent basis. You don't have to hit it super hard to become to have a quality productive at bat. And that right there just proves that, what Yu Chang seems to not be able to do at this moment and why Richie is currently holding that roster spot.
And it kind of shows like an organizational shift in philosophy. Like we look at last year and Jake Bauers got to play up until June. Like, they were really slow. In the past, they've been really slow to kind of, pull these veteran guys or the guys that are out of options. They've given them a lot longer than just the first month. And, they let Bobby Bradley and Logan Allen go now when they had to get this roster down to 26, which they didn't necessarily have to do. They could have sent Eli Morgan down to Columbus to start to get fully stretched out. They had other options, but that just tells me they saw all that they needed to see. And, I like it. I like it because they have a lot of 40-man decisions they need to make. There's still one spot open on the 40-man now. And if we remember, Eniel De Los Santos was a COVID replacement. So he's not on the 40-man roster, but being a COVID replacement is what allows him to be on the active roster right now. So I believe he's pitched well enough to earn that last 40-man spot. I don't know if it's, just waiting on the paperwork or what, but I definitely think he should be up here.
Yeah, he's got a lot of potential, a ton of heat on that fastball. It kind of reminds me of what Clase was going through last season a little bit. At the beginning of the season, he was trying to find his stuff and remain consistent. And when you're throwing the ball that hard, paint jobs aren't easy. Shane Bieber, Corey Kluber, they make it look flawless, right? But when you're throwing the ball that hard, it can be hard to keep that control and maintain it throughout the season. So I just think he needs to, keep going at it, keep working at the craft. And by the time the weather warms up, I'm sure he's going to be good and ready to go. But just to recap last week's set of games, so we were on a 7-game losing streak heading in to the series against the Oakland A's after we got swept in a 4-game series by the Los Angeles Angels. So this was the first time that Cleveland has swept a series in Oakland since 2002. I didn't even know that.
They never play well in Oakland for some reason.
Historically, Oakland, they've had their moments. They've had their years where they went to the playoffs. You had guys like Chapman, Kana, Josh Donaldson. So you had some good names running through that franchise, but we hadn't swept them since 2002, 20 years in the making. I'm just glad we were able to get the job done. You were mentioning Andres Jimenez and Richie Palacios there. Key at bats in that Saturday game. But, I'm kind of just hoping that this is the start of a little bit more consistency. We lost the first game of the doubleheader here. Currently, as we record, we're down 3-0 right now in game 2. But, I don't think I can just go on with being swept or sweeping. It's not the right way to go. It's super frustrating.
It is. It's tough. And again, with a young team, all bets are off. There's really no predicting what they're going to be, And I think another thing too is they're running so many different lineups out there. In my opinion, this lineup they put out here for game 2 was not a serious lineup. I mean, you have Ahmed Rosario in the 2-hole. They sit Josh Naylor. I get it's a lefty, but he's got the hot bat right now. Got Oscar Mercado batting behind Franmil. Ernie Clement, who's ice cold's in there right behind Austin Hedges. To me, it's just not a serious lineup. And Cal Quantrill had a really rough first inning here, but I think this is the biggest thing, is giving these young guys some consistency too, which comes from riding the hot hand. For me, I know that Andres Jimenez only played short the whole weekend in Oakland because Ahmed Rosario had that wrist injury that they were giving him some rest, but when over his last 4 games, when he bats .470 with a grand slam and 7 RBIs, he needs to be playing every day at shortstop. And that's not even talking about defense. He's the superior defender. His bat's on fire, and he's showing us he's comfortable there. He's showing up to the ballpark. He knew he was going to be penciled in at the shortstop position, and he could just go up there and, play. He could just swing, be comfortable, and be himself. And that's the problem with Ahmed. I'm not sure. It's been the biggest question all year. And, it sucks having to keep talking about it, because I know that when he's on and he's hitting as well as he can, he's a pretty good major league bat. But I just think when you're in an organization with the depth that they have at middle infield like this, I just don't know how you can find him every single day at bats. And I don't know if it's a situation where they can kind of platoon the two of them. But Tyler Freeman's out on his rehab assignment at AAA Columbus right now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him before the end of the year too. He just got his first hit a couple games ago down there, but he's another guy with the hit tools like Stephen Kwan and Richie Palacios. This is a guy that's got speed. He's going to put the bat on the ball, and it's exactly what this organization loves. And, so it's are we putting him at shortstop? Are we keeping him at second because it's affecting Brian Rocchio, Gabriel Arias, and Tyler Freeman behind them? And to me, when you're putting Ahmed Rosario at shortstop for 18 innings today, with both games of this doubleheader, you're just kind of delaying the inevitable, because he's not a long-term fit on this team. And we've talked about that with the contract. He's got a couple years of control left. They're going to look to move him because that's what this organization does. And this is one that they could afford to do. But I think it would benefit this lineup to just have Andres Jimenez at shortstop. And then I don't know if you want to pencil Ahmed in left field every so often, or wherever you got to do to just get him some at-bats. But I don't think he's earned the right to have every day at-bats at this point in the season.
I completely agree. And I think part of the reason why he might be playing is Tito. He'll always talk about players' confidence, especially about these young guys. Now, Ahmed Rosario is a little bit more has a little bit more major league experience than a lot of the other younger guys on the team, but it could just be that he's not feeling so confident right now, and Terry Francona is trying to give him that opportunity to get hot at the plate and and to, clean up some of the miscues on the infield, but it just doesn't seem to be panning out. And I said this at the beginning of the season. I'm a guy that's holding every game as a really, really important game, because you get down to the dog days of late August and early September. If we miss a wild card spot, or if we miss an AL Central championship by 2 games, you can point your fingers, because there are going to be plenty of opportunities to say, hey, we shouldn't have been running with this guy for 18 straight innings when you have Gabriel Arias batting really, really well. Or excuse me, Andreas Jimenez batting really, really well and playing flawless defense. I think we can sprinkle him throughout the outfield, because, we have Franmil out there today. So
yeah,
clearly it's not the most important position on the field. So
right.
And I think that's what we're going to start seeing a little bit more of a consistent theme of, is just throwing him out in the outfield just to get him at bats, make our money's worth on his contract right now, and just see where it goes. But to touch back on what, the struggles were heading into Oakland, nothing really good to talk about that LA series. The bats were asleep for the entire 4-game series. I think we put up a total of 6 runs in 4 games, and that's an average of like 1.2. So, I mean, you're going to have to throw basically a complete game shutout if you want to avoid something like that. No, really, really nothing much to talk about. I was wondering if you had anything to, hint on about that series and what went wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, Jose was the one bright spot. He kind of sealed up his AL Player of the Month for April with that series. He had the game with 2 2-run homers, which just Jose doing Jose things. But again, Kwan being out of this lineup like hurts more than I think people thought when he got that hamstring injury in New York. Like, he just makes things click up there, because the difference between him and Ahmed in that 2-hole in the lineup is night and day. I mean, Kwan will stand up there, he'll fight off tough pitches, he'll have 9 pitch at bats, and that helps all the guys coming up behind him too. The more pitches they can see before they step into that batter's box. And how many times do we see Ahmed swing at the first or second pitch? He just swung at a 2-0 pitch and beat it into the ground to first base. And these are the things, and that's not necessarily his fault. He's just not really a 2-hole hitter. I mean, it worked last year, but it wasn't because he was taking a lot of pitches, and it doesn't really fit with the approach that they're going with this year. So I just think he strikes out too much, and he doesn't see enough pitches. It's just kind of like a black hole in the lineup before Jose. So again, like, now that Franmil's out of that cleanup spot, I like Owen Miller there. I think that's good protection. He sees a ton of pitches too. He'll hit the ball the other way, and he's, he hits extra base hits. Like, he's second in baseball in doubles right now, I believe. And that's the kind of guy you need behind Jose. Because I mean, LA and New York was doing it too. They're just pitching around him. They're like, if Franmil's hitting behind you, he's not doing anything right now. And so besides that, like I said, I think Miles Straw, Stephen Kwan are the catalysts for this offense. And as they go, this lineup's going to go. Like, when they're hot, we're going to be winning games. And that wasn't happening in that LA series.
Yeah. Stephen Kwan's absence was absolutely felt. I mean, it just seemed like we were just so out of our mix without having him in that 2-hole. And you brought up how Ahmed Rosario just swings at first pitches all the time. And there was one today. I think there was a guy on base. It was late in the game, 7th inning. Mm-hmm. Pitcher just walked the guy before him, and he swings.
Right.
The ball's nearly at his shoulders, and he's taking a hack at it. It's kind of what Franmil's going through right now. It looks like that a little bit. It's just like, hey, maybe I'll get lucky and bloop this into right field. But just the approach. Somebody needs to take him back and just get back to the regular mechanics, because we saw what he was able to do last year. You brought up in the 2-hole last year, he was able to produce at a higher volume. And I think it may have been because he had a little bit of less pressure. It was his first year on the squad. He didn't have that shortstop spot absolutely nailed down, and he rolls into this season thinking it's his. He might just need to take a day and think about some things.
And I think he kind of needs to just know his role on this team. Like, he has too much speed to not get on base. Like when he gets on first base, he's a weapon. Or if he hits the ball into the outfield, he's thinking double out of the box. Like his speed is his best asset, and he needs to utilize that. We don't need you to hit balls in the gap. We don't need you to hit balls out of the park. If you're batting in the 2-hole, we just need you to get on base. And I know he wants to hit, but if you're in that 2-hole, you need to be able to take your walks. And he doesn't do that. Like he's not a top of the order hitter. And it's tough when Kwan's out, because I know Tito was hesitant to even put Steven Kwan in that 2-hole just because he didn't want him to change his approach from coming from the bottom of the order up there. But it just shows like how important these spots are in the lineup and the approach it takes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still a lot to figure out with the productivity at the plate, getting on base and stuff like that. But I would say let's move our approach to some of the Guardians pitching right now. So Zach Quisak, he went 5 innings today. I believe he gave up 4 runs. Either way, wasn't the best outing for him. He had his home run pitch, as he always does. Manny Machado took him over the wall in left field, and it kind of just went downhill from there. In the game today, they were going back and forth. We ended up losing by 1 run, and it was just a day full of frustration. But I don't think there's anything more frustrating for Terry Francona, the front office, and Cleveland Guardians fans alike than Aaron Savali. I mean, it seems like this guy is falling off the planet. Nowhere near as productive and efficient as he was last season. And it just seems like every single time he takes the mound, he's getting tattooed.
Yeah, he's definitely got some stuff he needs to figure out. He battled back a little Friday to even get it to, the 4 innings. But again, his ERA is up over 10, and it's getting more concerning as time goes on. Hopefully when the weather heats up, he heats up a little bit. But, we move into the Oakland series, and Tristan and Bieber were just outstanding this weekend. I mean, Tristan needed a game like that on Sunday where he finally got over that hump of just falling on his face in like the 4th inning. Like he went, like Bieber did Bieber things on Saturday. We already know like what to expect out of him. But for Tristan to go 6 1/3 innings on Sunday with no runs, 7 strikeouts, he needed that so badly. And I just hope he can build off that his next time out.
Yeah, and Bieber, outstanding. You expect that from him. He delivered 7 scoreless innings, which was the longest of any starting pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians this season. Gave up a run with 7 strikeouts. Something that I'm going to start wondering is, I think Shane Bieber has taken away from the approach of striking batters out. It used to be he was wiping away 8, 9, 10, 12, even 14 batters every single game. But, it kind of proves the longevity aspect of things, that he's just taking the simple approach of letting guys put the ball in play and having his defense make the plays behind him. So, that will also help in the later end of the season when, you hear a lot about these dead arms after a rushed off season. I want, listeners to think about what their arms feel like in late July, early August. Like these guys are almost at the end of their runs for the season. And, with the way Bieber is pitching, I think he's being incredibly efficient, keeping that pitch count to as low as it can be. And yeah, Tristan, you touched on it. Fantastic outing, 6 1/3, 4 hits, 7 strikeouts. Just to follow that up with Bieber's performance, it probably gave this team a boost and their starting pitching, that confidence. But Cal Quantrill's having a rough time right now, and Zach Quisak didn't exactly deliver this afternoon, so I guess we'll have to see. Moving on into the bullpen, Anthony Ghost also came in and just basically fell on his face, which was super disappointing for all the Ghost truthers.
Tough for me. I'm big on him, and that was tough to watch. Yeah. But he hadn't got a lot of use, so maybe that was just a rare rusty outing. We're gonna go with that.
Yeah. I mean, he went 1/3 of an inning. He walked 2, gave up 3 runs. Stefan had to come in and close it out, which would have been nice to give him an extra day off, but you got to take care of business. And I think, Mel, I wouldn't panic yet. Ghost he seems like a productive quality pitcher.
You can throw
especially
that hard.
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
Yeah, you're going to be just fine. It's just a matter of these guys getting back into the season and just producing the way they should. But Luke Maley, how about this kid? Right, Austin Hedges,
he's looking good.
batting like 130 or something. Who knows anymore? But I think Luke Maley right now, he's batting 300 on the season, mind you, not a huge sample size. I think he's 3 for 10 with a couple walks. So he scored, and all 3 of his hits, by the way, have been doubles. That should be mentioned. They're not just flared out singles, and he's making the most of his plate appearances. It's pretty refreshing.
Yeah. It's good to see just someone hitting out of that catcher spot. And he plays pretty good defense too. So I think that was a good pickup. We'll see.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to see. But just looking at the week ahead as we wrap up this doubleheader with the San Diego Padres, it was just a quick 2-game series. Starting tomorrow night with Aaron Savali, on the mound. We're going to be facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays. All the games are at home. So, after so that'll be Aaron Savali. There we go. Aaron Savali will be facing off against Jose Barrios, who we very well know from the Minnesota Twins. That'll be a matchup that, maybe some familiarity will bring Savali back to being on his game. What are you thinking about that matchup? So a matchup we've certainly seen in the past.
Yeah, Jose Barrios is tough. He's 2-0 on the year so far. So it's going to be interesting to see if Savali can have his pitches working off one another and get back on track here at home tomorrow and start this series off right against the Blue Jays.
Yeah. Toronto's a very good offensive team, and should Aaron Savali not get the job done Thursday night, he's followed up by Shane Bieber and Tristan McKenzie on Friday and Saturday, so hopefully that'll cool down their bats. And then Sunday, we don't have anybody penciled in yet, but a very tough week ahead coming up. So hopefully the Guardians can just bounce back the way they have been. If today's game against the Padres doesn't end up as a win, expect to sweep the Blue Jays, guys. But really wanted to thank everybody for hopping on tonight and joining on the podcast. We really appreciate the listens week in, week out. Just always remember to please follow, share, subscribe to Believeland Media LLC. Follow me and Mel on Twitter at MaxwellG24, at Mello_NIE91. And stay safe, everybody. And thanks for joining us. I'm going to kick it off to my co-host Mel here to take it away.
Yeah, if your eyes are bleeding from watching Ahmed Rosario play shortstop for 18 innings today, hopefully your ears still work so you can listen to this episode and catch up on some past episodes on the website. But let's hope we get to see Jimenez back in there at shortstop as we head into this series with the Blue Jays. And will Richie Palacios get to stay with the team? I'm looking forward to seeing that. And when is Franmil going to wake the hell up? Let's hope that happens against the Blue Jays, because we all know the dynamic, power-packed lineup the Blue Jays are going to be coming in here with, and the differences they have pitching this year too. So I know this doubleheader isn't looking too good against San Diego. Hopefully the bats can get going against the young kid, Mackenzie Gore, here tonight. But yeah, excited to watch this Toronto series. And everybody, thank you for your patience and us getting this episode out. I'm sorry I bought a house and things are last minute. And thank you. And it's super stressful, but here we are with a great episode here tonight. So I want to thank everybody for listening, and stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.